I'm Digital Cash Dev, and this is my second proposal. It is a web wallet QR code explorer. So essentially, I want to be able to have a tool for developers and for people just to understand more about Dash conceptually, as well as a tool that can be used for faster prototyping and completion of projects like this, where they're not necessarily going to go in front of layman end users, but people that have some connection, more connection to the Dash community, like this proposal tool that I had just created and just used to submit this proposal. So the basic idea is this. We want to have a tool that can support multiple wallets, meaning wallets by wallet phrase, that can index multiple accounts of each of those wallets, that can view either the receive or the change usage of any index down to the address. And of course, work on mainnet and testnet. And also be able to have just a generic bag of addresses for non-HD addresses. So the idea is something to be able to manage, to be able to visualize, step through and manage these, and then be able to use them quickly as a developer for debugging, be able to copy an address or a WIF in normal text format, or scan an address or sweep a WIF as a QR code. Also have the ability to inspect address details. So for example, over here for the proposal, we can look at proposal details. So something like that, where we can look at those, and then be able to back up the wallets and metadata as JSON. So this could work as a poor man's wallet to some degree, but primarily I'm looking at this through the lens of as a developer. How do I get all of the wallet minutia off the table to focus on the unique value, rather than, because with a lot of projects I've done, I've re-implemented portions of a wallet just as a matter of, we don't have the full wallet SDK yet, but I need these little bits. I just need to get some addresses. I need to automate this. Well, if I had had this tool, then I would have been able to generate 100 addresses, put them in a list, and, call it good, right? So I want something that makes it easier to do tests and easier to explore. So that's the goal here. Now, there's also a stage 2 to this, which is that the HD addresses are similar to but different from Evo addresses. Evo addresses use a bespoke addressing scheme that's not supported by any other tools that I'm aware of. So we do need something for debugging Evo addresses that is not a huge stretch from where we're at. The Dash HD library is focused around Dash addresses, but it does support generic BIP39 addresses, and Evo addresses, the protocol that they extend from is based on BIP39. So we can also get that in there. And then as part of managing the addresses, just the HD addresses or the legacy addresses, we want the ability to be able to mark it as as reserved or pending. You've had this problem with your phone before, where you go to get an address and the person's not actually paying yet, but you've given them the QR code to scan. Maybe you send it via text message, or maybe you showed it to them or whatever. And then you go to use it again and you end up with a double used address, because it's giving you an address based only on the balance. And we need an ability to say, well, no, we can mark this address as pending. I'm going to use that address, consider it used, even though it doesn't have a balance. It doesn't have any deltas. So there's that. And then also, this is where it gets into something that is both a prototype of what's to come, as well as just a really great tool for anybody working on unique functionality, is the ability to have a URL redirect for app integration. So let's go back to the proposal here. So one of the things that didn't exist in my original demo was the scan to pay, because it's just a little bit more implementation. It's not that big of a deal, but it's just one more tedious thing. And so, because I'm just trying to get through this proposal process, I go ahead and I create this thing where I'm going to just paste in a WIF that I've loaded. And I've already got command line tools. Let me actually bring those over here so you can see what this is like and what this will be based on, because it's the same code. I'm just adapting the command line here. So we're going to do, what was it? Yeah, dash wallet. Let's do dev. So this is my dev wallet. And okay, let's look at my coins in my dev wallet. So here are my coins in my dev wallet. So that's what they are. Now I'm going to say, let me go ahead and request from John Doe. And I want to show 2 legacy addresses. So here are the next 2 available addresses that I have that I could send to John Doe. So don't worry too much about this. This is the tool that I've been using for the last year or so whenever I do any sort of payment, or, well, not 100% of the time, but I don't ever use the app on the phone. I use this instead. But the point being, I want to take that functionality for being able to quickly, get an address, debug it, and translate that into a web application. And what I was going to say about the URLs is, so I've got this information here. I was pasting in the WIFs. I wanted to implement the scan to pay. What would have been really nice is if I didn't have to implement this. Okay, this is where the gold is. Sorry that it's taking me 6 minutes, 7 minutes to get here, but this is where the gold is. So with the phase 2. And so imagine that when people are developing apps, they just are able to construct a link that goes over to a wallet. So somebody puts in a wallet address, goes over to the wallet then pops up and says, hey, this app wants to get 2-. Okay, boom. And then it flips back over and it gives it a WIF that has 2- on it, or sends 2- to an address, whatever. But imagine that we had that capability. I think that would be really, really nice, and is also coinciding with something that's happening in the industry. The larger payment industry in general, is the ability to have more fine-grained control over the movement of money. So being able to have the URL-based control where you do the OAuth process for redirects, just like any permission process on the web. You see this all the time. You click on something, do you allow this to do that? Yeah. So just having that in there. And that's kind of the scope of it. And again, the basic idea is enhance developer focus, skip that minutia, allow really easy access to be able to work with some keys without having to actually build out the wallet tool quite yet. Just focus on the unique value. Having copy pasta for production apps. So somebody can go into the source of this, find the little snippet that does X or Y or Z, copy it, move on with their life, right? Also, I don't remember if I mentioned this earlier, but I'd like to, as a stretch goal, actually, because I think a lot of these actions are discrete, have a debug console type of thing, similar to, some of the stuff that I do here. Oh, that's empty right now. But similar to some of the stuff I do here, where somebody could open up the debug console and see what was the code that was used to do this action. So you do a click, check the debug console. The debug console shows you this is the code that was run. Copy. So you go through, do the actions you want to do with the addresses, and then check the console and see the code that produces those actions, copy paste it, change it to taste. So kind of a stretch goal there, because there could be some nuance there. And yeah. And unfortunately, I don't do design first. I don't believe in design first. I believe in emergent design, that you go through the process, you figure out what sucks, and you solve the sucky things until you end up with a good thing. And that's how this came about. And hopefully, if you don't think that it's great, then let me know. The colors, whatever, that now it's ready for design. At this point, this is ready for design, I believe. But, maybe some other testing, some other feedback before we go into the design phase, just to make sure all that it solves the problems. But this was born not of a checklist, but this was born of, okay, well, I need to do the things. What are the steps that need to be taken to do the things in the least frustrating way possible? And go check out the video that I made on that if you're interested, on the proposal tool specifically. Anyway, so we're down here in the the why. Oh yeah, and use it for debugging. I don't think that we need 100 million implementations of, dash keys and dash HD and all that stuff. But I don't think that our implementation should be the only implementation that works on the web. So, our dash web SDK, it would be good if there was someone else who developed a web SDK or parts of a web SDK. So for people that are developing new tools, having something to compare against to ensure correctness, to know, that just saves so much development time. If somebody's doing, and it does actually, like, not even if it's web, if it's Android or whatever it is, if it's iOS, wherever people are writing code, we want the inputs and the outputs and the intermediary representations to be available to people. So that's pretty important. So how is this going to get delivered? Well, and produced and delivered? Well, we're going to be using our existing Dash Web SDK. We'll be using Dashcore RPC for checking balances, and the RPC Explorer is just a thin layer over Dashcore RPC that it's you can substitute the one for the other. This just protects, it gives us a public endpoint that doesn't expose private values like the RPCs that actually deal with the wallet. Anyway, so I'll have that. One of the frustrations that many developers have encountered is that a lot of the tools we have are legacy tools that are based off of Bitcore, and so they don't handle instant send balances correctly. So we want to make sure that we can represent instant send balance versus confirm balance easily. And yeah, so that's the basis there. Now this hosting by MNOs and ENOs, that's something I want to go into more later, but essentially every tool that I am producing here, I want eventually the MNOs and ENOs to have the opportunity of hosting it. They should be able to host web wallets. They should be able to host address checking tools. They should be able to host the RPC Explorer. They should be able to host all of these things. So I just want to reiterate that. And as I firm up how to express that better, the proposal will come forth. And then what this is actually going to be, it's just going to be plain files. There's not going to be any build step. There's not going to be any frameworks. It's just going to be HTML, CSS, and JavaScript using these plain JavaScript libraries. So anybody is going to be able to use them going forward. Use them as an example. There's no, I like to keep things very flat, very simple, very grug brain. So this will be an app that can easily be hosted from any web server without any special configuration or build steps or any of that. And it will be publicly hosted as addresses.digitalcache.dev, just like we have proposals.digitalcache.dev, rpc.digitalcache.dev, etc. And this will also have documentation, just like I have for the RPC Explorer and for the proposal site. Let me see if I can actually get over there real quick so you can see. So I have the documentation. How do you install this? How do you deploy? This one's really simple. So it's just you copy the files over and start up the web server. So there's hardly any information there. The RPC one has a little bit more information to it because there's some configuration and whatnot that goes into it. But anyway, my point there is just that code is useless without documentation. We've seen lots of times people have produced code, but then the documentation is empty or just has the template documentation from the setup tool that they were using. And we need code cannot be complete without the documentation that somebody else could easily figure out how to use and deploy it. So we need working demo, the API documentation, and the install and deployment instructions. Now the API documentation for the proposal is actually in the library itself. The proposal is the application. It doesn't expose the API. So that's why that section was missing from there. Anyway, and then if I don't think there's going to be any libraries that emerge out of this effort, but if there are, then they will be made available for both web and Node, all JavaScript platforms. So anyway, that took a little bit longer to go through than I was hoping, but I hope that this communicates the value. And if you're kind of on the fence about it, I'm going to throw out a trust me, bro, because I don't know that I'm that eloquent, but I think that once you see it, you'll recognize that the value is well worth it, and this will be a quick turnaround. I actually wish that I could do it just in one go, but I think with the way that the budget is going right now, that I'd rather try to spread it out and say, okay, we'll do it in 2 phases rather than doing it in one go, because I want that to be a little bit easier pill to swallow and not have too big of an impact on, everybody else that's seeking budget. I want it to be manageable. So 75 dash per month is what I'm requesting for November and December. And that might seem steep, but I'm just going to throw out a trust me, bro. You've probably paid, well, I don't want to say that. Yeah, it's probably not as much as it seems. When you think about other projects, and I feel pretty confident. Well, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. Right. Like I'm not going to allocate this in terms of days. I'm going to allocate, or in terms of hours, I'm going to allocate this in terms of days. And, if I pull an all-nighter to get it done, then I'll get it done. So I'm confident that budget is not going to have creep in it, and this will be delivered on time, on budget. So anyway, that's what I got. Check it out on Dash Central, or right on Digital Cash Dev. I'll post that down there. There's the proposal, and it should just now, within the last few minutes, should have finally landed. Yeah, so I'll go ahead and claim this, and I hope to have your support. Adios.